Hello, everyone, and welcome to. How do I stop sharing the screen? Welcome to Silverline Live one-on-one. Whoop! I just lost Brent. I just lost the man of the hour. But I'm sure he's going to come back.
But I'm here.
So this is Silverline
one-on-one part 2. What time is?
Let me while Brent's going, let me make sure all of the streams are working. Get my chat open up here. Make sure we're live on Facebook, live on YouTube and Twitch and all those places. So I'm sure Brent will come back when he gets reconnected. That was actually kind of funny. There he is.
That's all about. I mean, that better not happen again. I am unhappy.
That's okay. It was funny. Just as I introduced you, you went away.
I know.
It's like, what did Thomas say
Now, finally.
to make Brent run away? He ran away. Thomas has pissed me off. I left.
All right, so I can tell we're live on Twitch. We're live on YouTube here. Let me go ahead and share the YouTube link out. I forget where that is every time. Well, that's help if I go to the right.
I'm trying to grow my facial to be like you guys because I'm trying to be a part of a club.
Yeah.
Well, you just keep at it, little trooper.
That's right.
Yeah. This is about as good as it gets, and then it's going to go another day, and I'm like, yeah, get rid of this. I can't take it anymore.
Get with the program. Okay, it's been shared there. Let me make sure we're. This is what happens when you kind of have to produce. Usually on the Sunday and Wednesday, like Sunday Brett does it, and on Wednesday Tim does it. But this is what happens when you kind of have to produce your own thing. You got to go look, make sure all the streams are working, everything's out. Okay.
Well,
so,
I see you on Facebook. Yeah.
All right.
I'm
so
going to
good
share
deal.
it for you guys.
I'm about to share it too. So sharing it now. All right. So I got volume. So I got to turn it off. Okay. So good. We are there. Oh, look at that. See Oven already. Hey, Oven, what's up? I see Wubba. How you guys doing? Let me give a hello, everyone. Okay, good deal. Okay, so I think all the knobs and gears and buttons are in place. So we're gonna launch. So this is Silverline one-on-one, and this week we are excited to announce Brent Larson is going to be our roast. I mean our interview.
Wait a minute. There's no way to hang this thing up.
Yeah. And so we're going to spend a lot of time with Brent, asking him all kind of questions. If you guys got, hey, Mickey Clausen says hey too. Tommy says hi.
I'm right here.
I'm just reading the chat, man. If you've got questions that you want to ask Brent, please send them to us on the chat, and I will make sure that I get them asked. Otherwise, it's just going to be me asking questions. Tommy, your iPad has gone away.
I know.
Okay, all right. So we also have joining us here Thomas Florimonte, who is going to be inking. What did you tell me you're going to be inking? I forgot. You went through a whole list of things that were possibilities, but
we're doing a book that you and I are working on called Trumps.
Okay, so Tommy is going to be inking from Trumps, and we'll minimize me and Brent for most of the time because we know that you don't want to sit here and stare at our faces the whole time, but you do want to watch Tommy ink. And
Roland.
Yeah, well,
I would love if my face got more space.
Yeah. Well, let's see. I think I figured out how to do this the other day. There you go.
Oh yeah. Oh, I could look at you all day. No. What am I saying? I'm live, aren't I? Oh.
Yeah, yes, you are live. So yeah, there's all kind of little layouts that you can do here, and they're all pretty interesting. But Tommy's in the middle. Yeah. Whoop.
Oh, it's a sandwich. It's a Tommy sandwich.
Yeah.
I like it. Don't poke me. Don't poke me.
Plug your ears so that you can't hear, Tommy. Yeah. Other way, Brent. Yeah, Owen said it was almost Tommy 2, Electric Boogaloo.
I can't do any bits.
Yeah. So Tommy's gonna be inking on Trumps, which is a project that we're hoping to. Well, hopefully you're gonna broadcast that so we can actually see it, right?
Oh, I didn't?
No, you're still not up. You're not connected again.
What am I doing? What happened?
I don't know. You're not there now.
I'm coming back.
Yeah, we are planning to launch Trumps with the Cat and Mouse 3 in September, so we're about a month away from that. And we're Tommy's inking the final pages, and we're coloring the final pages. And for Cat and Mouse, we're doing the same thing. Cat and Mouse, we're actually lettering and coloring. That book is completely pencil and ink, so I guess I'll go into the Kickstarter updates now. so that is the one that's upcoming. We're planning.
Did you see the page?
Not yet. No, not yet. I will put it up as soon as I see it. I don't get the doorbell chime. Oh, there it is.
I did it right. Yeah, I did something right.
So sweet. That looks like it's one of the Jokers from Trumps. So good news for the other Kickstarters. For the Twilight Grim and Divinity issue #1, both of them. I received a package today from Mexico that had, you see, I haven't even opened the plastic on this yet. But these are the pencils from Alex Sarabia, the penciler of Divinity. And for those of you who backed it, you know, this is the last pages that we needed in order to fulfill the rest of those rewards. So if you're one of the half a dozen, I think there's about 6 people. If you're one of the half a dozen people who don't have your rewards for Twilight Grim and Divinity, I'm going to be on these tomorrow, and hopefully we'll get them out in the mail by Wednesday. I have to check with my postal lady who lives with me to make sure that she's available to go do that. Still waiting on, so that's the Divinity and Twilight Grim. I'm still waiting on artwork from Luis from Argentina to finish the last few rewards for Kalis #2. So we know that they're on the way. The last message I got from Lewis was that they're caught up in customs. And so as soon as they clear customs, they're going to be on the way. Wubba says it's another book, a double book or 2 singles. So Wubba, that's not something we've 100% decided yet. And part of the reason you're asking about the upcoming Trumps and Cat and Mouse, part of the reason we haven't decided that yet is the Trumps book is going to be 48 pages long. And so if we did the 48 pages with the Cat and Mouse 3 as a flip book like we've done for the others, then that makes for a 60-something page. That's a really thick flip book. And while I'm not opposed to it, just not
almost
sure.
turns into a trade at that point.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And then that's something different.
Yeah, and yeah, so probably Wubba, it'll be 2 singles. I'm about 95 at the 2 singles thing. May still call it the Silverline double, but just won't be an actual flip book. That's where I'm strongly leaning now, and it's just simply because of the page count. Steve Halsey, what's up, my OCD friend? I wore my mask out today, Steve. I went to 7-Eleven, had to pick me up one of these, and I wore my OCD mask, but I can't. I must have put it on my dresser. So thank you everyone for joining, and hopefully you come up with some good questions here. But tonight it's all about Brent. Brent, are you ready to be bombarded with questions?
Sure. Although
Excellent.
I may have a seizure, a very short seizure, if the question isn't one I'm terribly interested in answering.
Yeah. So we're just going to start at the beginning. So tell me what are the first comics you remember reading as a kid?
That's pretty easy.
Okay.
My mom got at a garage sale just some compilations of the Peanuts comics. And so I just read those like crazy. And I just loved them, watched them, read them all the time. And actually really got into the characters of that. I know that sounds kind of weird.
No, not at all.
In terms of actual comics like we know, fast forward a few years, and I had been really interested in the Star Wars action figures and then the Adventure People, which is probably older than some of you know about. But then I had heard about G.I. Joe, and I started buying the G.I. Joe guys. And then a friend of mine.
So when you say buying the G.I. Joe guys, do you mean the figures, right?
The figures, yes. Yeah. The little 12-inch figures, not the Vietnam era G.I. Joe, but more like the Reagan era G.I. Joe.
Gotcha. Because I remember the ones that had the little string in it, and you pulled us back, and you pulled it, and you went, G.I. Joe, U.S. Army, reporting for duty.
Right, with the Kung Fu grip and everything.
Yes.
I don't know anything about it. Yeah, these are, G.I. Joe is an elite anti-terrorism task force now. Weirdly enough, the terrorists they fight all drive tanks and dress the same. You'd think they'd be a little more like guerrilla warfare types, but that never crossed their minds. But that's fine, because I love them. And then one day my friend came over with a comic book, and I'm like, oh, it's G.I. Joe. And I started flipping through it. And it's funny, it didn't occur to me until just recently that the thing that blew my mind was these little guys that I were buying, they weren't figures anymore. They were characters. They were characters in a story, and I wanted to know what that story was. And the cool thing was it was G.I. Joe issue number 12. Now, it was the first chapter in this multi-month storyline called 3 Strikes for Snake Eyes.
Wow.
And that was the name of the first chapter. But it occurred to me that if I had gotten issue 11, then it was kind of a standalone story, and I would have been like, I guess that's cool. And if I'd gotten issue 13, I would have been like, I don't know what's going on. I'm not interested. But I got issue 12, and it was like destiny was set from that moment. Wow. And I just started buying them. I was moving to Germany with my family, and I was like, how am I going to get a hold of G.I. Joe? I found a way, and Snake Eyes got out okay. His friend Quinn did not, and I was sad about that. And I was a comics guy. So eventually I'm like, G.I. Joe, the figure, whatever. But
yeah. So now Wubba says the 6-inch ones, is that the one you're talking about?
What did I say, 12-inch? Yes.
No.
6-inch,
Okay, yeah. I don't remember the smaller ones that much. I'm aware of them, but I don't remember them too much. I had like I said, I had the big 12-inch guy that I think he was actually 10 inches, wasn't he? I don't think he was 12.
I don't know.
Was it 12 inches? I think it was 10 inch. I don't remember. I got rid of mine a long time ago. So now I kind of wish I kept I held on to them.
Well,
Stephen Brown says hi. Hey, Stephen. We're on with Brent Larson tonight, so make sure you ask us some hard questions. Yeah. So you went from being essentially a toy collector or a toy buyer to a comic book reader.
Yeah.
So I have to ask you, and it's not really a comic thing, but did you call them what did you call them action figures? Did you call them?
I did. What are you implying?
Well, my mom.
Dolls?
Yes, my mom used to always say, "You're playing with your dolls." I'm like, "No, Mom, they're not dolls."
No, see, that was the thing that the big G.I. Joes had going for them, because eventually all the kids playing with them are like, "Wait a minute, I'm playing with Barbies, but for dudes.
Right.
I don't think I can roll with this anymore." And then they moved on and got into sports or whatever it is they do. Yeah. But with the 12-inch ones, I mean the 6-inch ones, not only did they come out with more of them, but they had backstory, and they had these really specialized weapon techniques, and it was like, it's not a doll, it's an action figure. It's a way to honor the actual weapons that are, you know, and by that time you're just like, no, actually you're playing with toys, but you're like, shut up, because they're cool.
Yeah.
And then I was in my early teens and girls weren't paying attention to me, but who cares? Because, you know, I've got
G.I. Joe,
Gung Ho and Roadblock, and not that I was dating them, but it was more like it was just cool that I could, you know, hang out with those guys in my mind anyway.
Yeah. Steve said I'm showing my age. Yeah, thanks, Steve. I appreciate that. Remind me of that, won't you? Wubba says he owned all the ninjas and a ton of the Alley Viper stormtroopers.
There you go.
I don't know what that means, so...
G.I. Joe was into ninjas before ninjas were cool. So, so you had Snake Eyes with his sweet tattoo and Storm Shadow with his matching tattoo, and they all learned at the same dojo and had the same masters, and they had all their funky ninja pals they hung out with and got pizza with on Friday, and I don't know what they did. But anyway, what does have to do with counterterrorism and tanks and giant machine guns? Again, irrelevant. It was
well, I have to ask, though, because I didn't realize ninjas was such a thing in G.I. Joe. Because I know you and because this is part of what this night is all about, you are into martial arts. Personally, right? I mean, you do martial art. I don't know. Curtis is going to kill me if he hears me. You do the martial arts, right? You perform them, practice them. What's it called when you do them?
It's a particular discipline called Kempo. It's kind of an amalgamation of a bunch of different styles, and I'm a second-degree brown belt. I've been doing that for about 8 years now, I think.
Okay.
And yeah, it's just a lot of fun.
So does that come as a result of? So are you doing this as a result of your interest because of the ninjas in G.I. Joe?
No, it comes in my interest in never getting beat up. And frankly, there is. I don't know if this is true of all guys, but there's just this little thing. I once heard that all men believe that they secretly know kung fu, and there's a part of me that's like, I would like to actually know it if push ever came to shove. So I thought, you know, I tried Taekwondo. I blew out both my ACLs, which is not a great idea if you're wanting to pursue this, you know, further down the road. But then Kempo, I had some friends taking it, and as I realized it wasn't going to hurt me as badly, and so I just kind of jumped into that.
Interesting.
Yeah. Yeah.
So now it makes me kind of wonder if there's not some kind of martial arts and comic book thing, because you know who Mike Baron is, right?
Yes.
The writer. Yeah, Mike Baron. I don't know what he does. I don't know the practice he does, and I don't know at all what level he is. But Mike Baron, I know, does martial arts. Dean Zachary, the guy who who worked for me, did a lot of work for me at Malibu, and who did the first issue of Cat and Mouse, also practices martial arts. And of course, our very own Curtis, is a seafood. He's a teacher.
Mm-hmm.
Wubba says, I had Storm Shadow and Snake Eyes taking on all the stormtroopers. I was a bored child.
I'd pay to see that fight.
Yeah. Stephen Brown says the people who made the G.I. Joe's toy coined the phrase action figure.
No kidding.
I did not know that.
You know what's funny is they were also billed as fully posable. As a kid, I thought the word was posable. So I kept telling people, get out, it's posable.
And what did posable mean?
I don't know. That it was extra cool, I guess. And then they got the swivel arm battle grip, which was actually the actual hinge on the bicep so that the arm could move and you could hold your guns better.
Gotcha.
So, yeah.
What was that?
Oh, that was me.
Oh.
But no longer.
All right. Sounded like maybe a microwave was going off. All right. So you went to Germany then, and then you started. You found a way to get the G.I. Joes. So would you say that you kind of became a collector at that point in time?
I'll tell you when I became a collector was when I went to pick up the latest issue of G.I. Joe at the Stars and Stripes, which was the Armed Forces bookstore next to the PX, which is the Armed Forces version of Walmart.
Right.
And I go on the Stripes and I go to pick up G.I. Joe, and I'm so excited, and it was late and it wasn't there. And I was like, I came all this way. Uncool, man. So, well, what else is there? And what's funny is apparently this entire Machiavellian way of thinking is like what saved Marvel in the 80s, because a lot of us all had the same thing. I almost wonder if it all happened at the same time, like it was with microwaves or something. But anyway, we're like, oh, okay, I'm not going to go home empty-handed. So there was this issue of and I thumbed through it, and I recognized the characters from this old Marvel old-made card game, and with all these random heroes like Vision, Scarlet Witch, the Hulk, etc. And I'm like, well, I remember these guys. I'll try this. And what's weird is, like, within months, I had Fantastic Four in there. I had X-Men, and I'm like, what is happening to me? But it didn't matter because it was just pretty darn cool.
Yeah, it had happened. Yeah.
It was something to look forward to. Which, yeah, it was great.
Now, do you remember what Avengers issue that was?
It was issue 252.
Okay.
Just because that was a storyline in which the Vision has become head of the Avengers, but he's being controlled by this crystal that is being manipulated by this entity on Titan, one of Saturn's moons, and the guy makes him want to control the world by taking over all the computer systems. And it's just right about when the Vision is about to make his master stroke. And I'm like, okay, well, maybe I better stick with this and see what happens.
Yeah, I just looked up the cover to it, and it's got the big fist smashing Hercules. Yeah.
Yep, that's the one.
Very cool. Now, did you read the letters pages at the time?
Oh yeah.
You would have read my letter then if you stuck with the Avengers very long, because my letter was published in 271, I think.
No kidding.
Yep. Maybe it's 270. I gotta go back and look. I never can remember which issue it was. Steven says they didn't want them to be called, talking about the action figures, they didn't want them to be called dolls because if they were, boys wouldn't buy them, which is true. If they had been called dolls, I would have told my mom I didn't want any. And he says the toys were made before the comics, and a writer for Marvel wrote the G.I. Joe comics, which is Larry Hama, which is what Wubba says. Yeah, Larry Hama wrote all the G.I. Joe comics. I don't know if he wrote them all, but he wrote a bunch of them. I think Larry also wrote the Nom, which is a very good series.
I think you could be right.
I'm not sure. I don't know. It's a great series, regardless of whether it was him or not. But yeah. So that made you into a comic collector at the time. Now, did you continue to buy the G.I. Joe?
I did for quite a while. I remember hitting a point where there were so many characters, and there were a lot of storylines and colorful characters, and I'm like, I think I've kind of lost the narrative thread here.
Yeah.
There was just a lot of other stuff that I thought was really worth reading, and so I kind of dropped it eventually. But I would have called myself a collector at that point because I was putting them in the bags and boards, and I think at one point I was typing out with a typewriter and note cards, like organizing them very much.
Yeah. If you were doing that, you were definitely a collector.
Yes.
Now, I'm sure that one of the questions that everybody wants to know: do you still have those comics?
I do not, and I can tell you what happened. And this continued on all the way through college. My parents, it was driving them crazy, but I wasn't stopping, and I took my comics with me to college in northern Arizona, and I kept reading. But I started noticing that comics were getting more expensive, but they weren't getting any better. If any, they were getting worse. They were getting kind of dumb. and kind of just like it was all about spectacle, and it was all about flashy art that was pretty cool, but it was almost like that they were coasting on that, and the stories were thin, and I just was getting frustrated. And I was like,
yeah,
I'm starting to buy comics that I don't like reading, which that makes them smart and me dumb, and I'm not cool with that. So I eventually said, no more. I'm selling my entire collection. So I went to a used bookstore and I said, look, I don't want trade credit. Just what do you want for everything that's here? And they said, well, I'll give you $500. That was probably like a tenth of what it was worth. But I was like, yeah, sure. I guess I get something back. Now, the only thing that came out of this was a few months later, I realized I still wanted to read comics. I loved it too much.
Yeah.
But then I made myself a promise. I said, I'm no longer a collector. I will read comics until I don't like them anymore, and then I will drop them like a hotcake. I'm no longer interested in maintaining a collection. And that helped me a lot.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So you still read them today, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. So do you no longer keep them, or do you just you don't? Or are they more like you bought a book, you read it, you put it on the shelf because you own it?
I'll buy them, I'll read them, I'll throw them in a closet, and I'll say one day I'll separate them into comics I'll probably read a second time, or comics I'll get rid of at a garage sale. And I'll think about doing that a lot, and I'll probably do it like around the time that I will never do
it. Yeah. Yeah, that's one of those things, right? Let's see. Steve Halsey says, I have that book and got the letter signed. Yes, he's referring to my fan letter into the Avengers.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So the story behind that is once Tom Rock, who runs the Daytona show, found out that I had a letter in there. I think every time he sees one, I think he buys it now. Yeah. So I think he has the single biggest collection of that issue of Avengers. And I think he tells people, and I remember signing the one for Steve. Stephen Brown says, the funny thing is no one in Marvel but Larry Hama wanted to write G.I. Joe because it was based on toys. I didn't realize that. No, I didn't realize that about Larry Hama.
Well, I appreciated that. I mean, if you think about it, if you have a good idea for a story, you can use anything. And why not? I mean, that's why I get frustrated when people say, well, you know, that's stupid. That's kid stuff. Says who? If you don't want it to be that way, then don't do it that way.
Right. Yeah. I totally agree with you. Wubba says, I don't bag or board my books. I just read them. Can tell my faves, they're all beat up. Yeah, I do. I will say I do still bag mine. I don't board them like I used to board them pretty religiously. And probably if you look to my Avengers collection, which is still probably my all-time favorite, issues like 1 through about 100 all are bagged and boarded. But beyond that, I'm just kind of like, I got them in bags.
Pretty sweet.
Yeah. So were comics? All right. So at what point in time? And I gotta because I know you, so I have to figure out how to ask this question. At what point in time was there a comic book that made you say, I want to do this?
You know what's weird is it wasn't a comic book. It was. Do you remember Marvel Age?
Sure, I do.
Yeah, it was like the Marvel newsletter, but they sold it, and I bought it because I was a fan, and they knew that they could sell me their laundry list, and I would buy it. So
yeah. So you were a Marvel zombie.
I was.
Yeah, me too.
I was. I have nothing against DC except I just knew that I couldn't afford it, so that was the end of that.
Yeah.
But it was right around. They came out with a special where they talked about what was upcoming in the next few months, and this was right around the time that John Byrne was going to take over the West Coast Avengers.
Mm-hmm.
And I was really excited by this because I love John Byrne from his Fantastic Four work.
Yep.
And he said, here's what's coming. I'm going to be messing with all of them, especially the Vision. And the Vision was my favorite character, hands down, throughout the 80s. He was the coolest. He was remote. He couldn't get along with people. And yet women loved him, specifically one woman. And so
Yeah.
I was like, dude, I want to be this guy. And that was great. And he had a great look and great powers and strong, and it was awesome. So when I heard someone was going to do that, I had this weird thought. I want to write the Vision. I want to be the one who makes him look good. I'll bet you I could do it as good as John Byrne could. Now, this is yet to be actually tried.
Right.
But I remember back to that moment because it was like my brain was on fire. I was like, wait a minute. I bet you I could really do this. And I was just, the endorphins were kicking. I don't know what was going on up there. But anyway, eventually I started to settle down. But I never forgot that. And every once in a while, I would just get this idea of these characters that I loved in Marvel, right, and how I would guide them if I was in control. And I wrote it down sometimes. Sometimes I just kind of let it go. But yeah.
So were you in college when this was happening?
Yes. Or it might have been right before I went to college.
Okay.
It's funny that I remember it so clearly because I didn't actually ever think that it was a viable idea for me to write comics until just a few years ago.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So what did you study in college?
Speech communication.
Speech communication. Okay. So so you didn't go. Royal Airship says my mom just asked me how to board her 60s magazines. You can actually buy bags and boards for magazines. I have a lot of my Mad magazine collection in magazine bags, Mad and Cracked. I have a bunch from the 1960s, from before I was old enough to buy them and kind of read them, and then I didn't start buying them until the 70s, obviously. But yeah, you can definitely do that with magazine bags. I've never seen a magazine board, but I would imagine that they make them.
I'm pretty sure there is.
Yeah. Because I know bits and pieces, I'm trying to get you from one point to one point to the other. So you studied speech communication because you were going to do what?
I wanted to hang out with my friends, and I didn't like science or math.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how did you get
degree to go? And then I was actually really interested in starting to get interested. I was hanging with a group called Campus Crusade in college, and I was writing skits for them. And I was like, I would love to get into film. So I started beefing up my GPA, and I was like, I think I will go to film school and maybe get a graduate degree in film. And that didn't really happen. Instead, I felt like I needed to go and actually join Campus Crusade staff. So I did that for a long time. I'm actually still doing that.
Right.
But through those years, I really got to learn how to write scripts for film. A lot of actually experts say that that's the best way to learn. Don't go to film school. I have friends who've gone to film school and they loved it, but they also say you can learn just by reading books and trying it, and that's a great way to learn anything. So.
I realize that I'm kind of in danger when I say things like this, but I also say the same thing. I'm like, and I say that because I teach comic writing, but you don't need to go to school in order to be a writer. I think there are some people that need the discipline that a school brings. In other words, you must do your homework by this day. I frequently have students that have problems meeting deadlines, and submitting homework assignments, and I always let them know, this is going to be, if you want to be a writer, this is going to be your life. But some people need that, and some people don't. Some people can just go and make it happen. So I agree, and I don't think that you have to go to film school or art school or things like that in order to do that thing. Sometimes it helps. I think it just depends on the person. But I think if you're highly motivated and you read books and you do it, you can get it all figured out. So how did you get there? Because I'm going to lead us to the transition from film to where to what you're doing. So how did you then get from you went from the college to Campus Crusade to actually making the films? Because that's not the first thing you did with them, right? They didn't say come make films.
Yeah, I did several things, but in the meantime, I just never forgot how much fun I had writing scripts and then eventually video scripts. And I just thought, people do this for a living. I would love to just learn how to do it. So I took a correspondence course.
Okay.
It was right before online courses started to take off. So
you actually mailed stuff back and forth.
I mailed stuff back and forth. And it was with Writer's Digest, and that is what taught me all the formatting and all the, how to make sure you don't look like an idiot when you're sending out movie scripts. They have to look a very specific way. And so I learned all that, and I started learning about things like 3-act structure and how to think visually and stuff like that. And then I skipped forward a couple years, and I had a friend who was a filmmaker, videographer type, who make film, and he and I were through some circumstances, we got together and we were like, one thing that I've noticed that people can trap themselves with is this thought that this thing I really want is going to happen because someone's going to come and offer it to me. And we were like, that's crazy. No one is ever going to come and offer to teach us how to make film. We just need to go and do it until we get it right. So the two of us got a couple other friends behind us, and we started making stuff. We actually made one film, and then literally someone came up to us and said, "Oh, I see you like films, so we'll give you some money if you make some films for us."
No way.
Yeah. So we started doing that, and made a bunch of short films, and I loved it. It was great, and that's actually a lot of what I still do.
Yeah, but now that wasn't for Campus Crusade then, right?
Yeah, it was.
Oh, it was. Okay.
It was.
All right.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, cool.
Yeah, but it wasn't stuff that you'd normally think. Like we made a zombie series, web series of 6 episodes that we filmed in my garage. It was called Z-Blog. It's about a zombie who was a zombie.
Right.
But he still spoke, and he was convinced that this was something he could overcome, like a bad character trait. And by the end, he was like, I can't do this anymore. I just want to eat people so bad. And I'm still really proud of it. It was a great example of what you can do with almost no money, but some pretty good talent behind you. And in our case, the actor was phenomenal. And it was we made some stuff like that. Really, a lot of the projects that we were asked to make were just to get people to think about spiritual topics and ways that were new for them and could start conversations. And I think films are great for that all by themselves. I can watch a movie and talk to someone about it for an hour, no matter what movie it is. Yeah. Even Trolls, even though I haven't seen it, I'm sure I could talk about it. And I love talking. So that helps.
Yeah, it wasn't a bad movie. I don't know ratings and stuff like that. I don't follow a lot of those. And you know this already. But BJ and I, we watch a lot of movies. We are planning to be in the theater this Thursday.
This coming, really? Which theater?
Well, the Regal here locally in Oviedo, because they're reopening on August 21st.
Yeah, I got tickets.
Yeah, that's Thursday.
No, No, it's not. It's a
Today's
Friday.
the 17th. Is it Friday? You might be right.
Well, now you got me concerned. Yeah.
Yeah.
21st is a Friday.
All right. So I'm wrong. We'll be in the theater on Friday.
Well, you can buy tickets now, so I would. I don't have any idea what it's going to be like, but I know.
You think it'll be packed?
I was so afraid. I was like checking their app, like at 5 a.m. Friday morning. This past Friday, I was like, they're going to sell out, and I'm going to be stuck out.
We got their movie pass thing,
like
so I don't know how
rain and everything.
Yeah.
But no, it was all set. So,
oh
yeah, man,
we're anxious for it. We're ready.
I'm ready. That's the thing I've missed more than anything else. I can say without hyperbole.
Same here. And New Mutants, the movie comes out next week.
Which one?
New Mutants.
Are you sure it's next week or the week after?
I think it's the 28th.
I think you're right. It is. Yeah, I'm there. Hey, dude, I'm going to see everything.
Yeah, we are too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, because the funny thing, Tommy's messages there is not big enough for me to read, but I saw it. The funny thing is, we were talking about it the other day, and BJ said, my wife, right? She said, I miss movie popcorn. She said, I really want some movie popcorn. So I know that when we go back, we are definitely going to get us a popcorn. But
me too.
But I'm really frustrated about Regal because they don't sell Cokes anymore. They changed to Pepsis, and I don't
really. Yeah,
I don't know how you can see a movie and drink a Pepsi. I don't get that.
I like Dr. Pepper, but I think is Mr. Pibb the Pepsi knockoff or something like that?
Yeah, I think so. I'm not real sure.
It's good enough for me.
Yeah, good enough. Yeah. Yeah. Pepsi is just like syrup, sweet syrup to me. It's like flat Coke. All right. So you took these these short films that you did, and did you transition it then, or did you kind of leverage it to make that into your position that you do now, or did it kind of someone said this is what we want you to do? Because this is what you do full time, right? You make films full time.
Yeah, that's pretty. Yeah, and I produce them a lot. Yeah, I write, I produce. I now have a team of writers who are really good, and we collaborate a lot. And yeah, that's what we do pretty much. Yeah, our films have been seen all over the world, and it's a lot of fun,
which I think is very cool.
Yeah, it's and you're really just a lot of times you wouldn't believe how you're really not limited by anything but your imagination. Yeah. And they sometimes cost money, as you may imagine.
Yeah. Now, of course, I can't remember if I warned you about this at the very beginning, but obviously some of the questions I know all the answers to already. Me personally, but you gotta. So you're doing these films. You're still reading comics, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So what happened? Because Kalis is your first comic.
Yes. What
happened to make you say, "Now's the time. I'm going to make a comic"?
That is okay. It's so funny. I'm like, that is such an interesting thing, Roland. But the thing is, it's really just interesting to me. So forgive me for ever saying that. But I had been writing film for a long time. I've written a few feature scripts too, and they're fun. But yeah, when you're a screenwriter, you kind of start bumping up against this idea, this thought, and that is, I want to tell the story that I want to tell. But film is a very collaborative medium, and that's a good thing. I've written scripts that I've handed to directors who made them better than I imagined they could be, which is really cool.
Yeah.
There's a part of you that's like, I want to tell a story that I get to shepherd from start to finish. And I was thinking, I don't know how that's ever going to happen in film, especially since the films that I would really love to see that I write they can have huge budgets and explosions and excitement, kind of stuff that you just can't do on your own unless they look really cheesy. And I have a hard time getting behind that. Some people can do it, hey, you warp speed ahead, my friend, but I can't do it. So I was like, well, all right. But then I just had a thought, and that was, I love comics. Why have I not thought about doing comics? And the only thing you need to know with comics is how to script one and how not to look like an idiot, so that when you hand your script to an artist, they know what you're trying to do and they can make it happen. Right. And so right around that time, this guy at church was like, hey, Brent, you ever thought about writing comics? Now, the weird thing was I was, but I have no idea how he knew that. And I'm like, yeah. And he said, I must have had that look like, hi, I'm really interested in learning how to write for comics.
Yeah.
You know that look. But anyway.
It might have had something to do with your Captain America shirt or something like that.
I don't know what I would have been wearing a Captain America shirt to church for. But anyway, so he told me that he knew you. And I'm like, oh, cool. And then you and I got together at Japan Express and and we just started talking. And you had a lot of 80s industry experience, which meant that you knew a lot of the guys that I had only seen in the little credit box on the first page of all my favorite comics. So I was like, whoa, this is so cool, man. So
90s, but yes.
Yeah. We talked for.
Don't make me older than I actually am.
Oh, was it 90?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. 90s. My first works were published in 88. That was the very first issue came out in 88. So
right.
So the 90s was kind of my decade.
Okay.
Yeah, in comics.
Yeah, and
but I did work with a lot of guys from the 80s. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. So that was just a lot of fun, and as I was thinking it through, I remembered that I'd had this idea about astronauts and get powers. And something about me is when I look at any kind of media, I really try to plug it into the world around me. How does it make me think? How does it make me look at humans? How does it make me think about the nature of the universe, the meaning of life, meaning of morals, all this stuff? What does that have to do with comics or anything for that matter? I don't know, but I will find a way because my mind just wants to grab onto anything like that. And I had this idea about astronauts in space who got powers and how it might be like the Superman story, but not really. Because Superman is one heck of a guy, but he's like 1 in a trillion or something in the galaxy versus just a regular plain old human.
Or a little like the Fantastic Four.
Yeah, although those guys were pretty darn righteous too. But what would happen if a normal guy, although my guy's not terribly normal, but anyway, I guess nobody's normal. But anyway.
If he was normal, if it was completely normal, we wouldn't care, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. He got powers. What did he do? Well, Netflix was a calling. And so, yeah. But I had this idea, and I was like, how am I ever going to tell this story? Because I could write it as a feature film script, but the odds of me getting it actually made as a film are daunting. And same with a TV show, which I know even less about creating than I do a movie. And then when I started thinking, I was like, but I'll bet you I could make it into a comic book. So I sat down and you and I were talking and I just asked you if you might want to help talk me through it. And you were very game and that was awesome. And you taught me how to write scripts and how to make things that to me seemed necessary detail-wise, but you assured me they weren't. And so we trimmed a 6-issue series down into 4.
Yeah.
And that was great. And that actually taught me a lot about all kinds of writing, because that's one thing writers love is the sound of their own voice. And so someone can come along and just say, dude, you are trying to squeeze 20 words into 50. Don't do that. The more you can get used to spotting that, the better a writer you can be.
Yeah.
So I just started hacking away, and the story really started to germinate and take off, and I was excited. And then you taught me about things like how to find artists on Pencil Jack. Mm-hmm. And so I did that. And then so I found Lewis, and his work was so superlative. I was like, I can't believe someone like this could actually work for me. And from there, just kind of took off.
Yeah.
Then you one day were like, "Hey, this looks really good. Would you wanna? I'm starting up Silverline again. You wanna come on board?" And I was like, "Well, that sure beats my plan B, which was to throw it in a drawer and wish for a little while before I eventually get into the stock market or I don't know, pet grooming or whatever it is middle-aged guys do." So this is much better, and so we just kind of took it and ran with it.
Throw it into the pile with your comics in the closet, right?
Yeah, that's right. Now my comics are in the closet. Yeah, that was my ultimate goal.
Yeah. So you found so when you approached Lewis, what was his reaction?
I don't understand the question. Say it again.
So you talked about you went on to Pencil Jack to find the artist, and that's how you found Lewis.
Yeah.
When you found him, what was his reaction? Was he like, "Hey, yeah, I'll do anything," or "Let me read your script," or
a lot of that. I asked him to do a couple of sketches for me, and he was like, "Yeah, well, let me tell you what I think you're asking for." And he came out with stuff, and I'm like, "Whoa, this is that." I think that was really when it started to hit me that this was actually going to happen.
Yeah,
and that's a great feeling.
Yes.
When you see something that only happened in your mind, you kind of have to. I couldn't draw my way out of a paper bag. Like I am way under first grade chops when it comes to art. So when I write a script and I'm seeing it in my mind's eye, a lot of times I'm just conditioned to the idea that is the only way it will ever be seen is by me in my brain.
Yeah.
Then when Lewis started showing me the sketches, and I was like, I think this may actually happen. It's pretty mind blowing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So can you remember when you first saw the printed copy of Kalos 1?
Mm-hmm. What was it like?
Yeah, what was it like? Where was that?
It was pretty cool.
Yeah.
I'm not a hugely excitable kind of guy. So by then I was actually like, well, let's see what number 2's gonna look like.
Yeah.
The thing that I think was exciting was that I know a lot of they will write one comic book and just to kind of get it out of their system, possibly, or to see what the experience was like, and that they're kind of one and done. But when I saw issue 1, the coolest thing, one of the coolest things was knowing there was an issue 2.
Yeah,
that I had embarked on a serious, full-on story that was going to have an ending, it was going to have a beginning, and I was going to see it all the way through. And that right there probably did more for me than even holding it in my hand and saying, look what I've accomplished. It's more like, look what we've begun.
Right.
That's a great feeling.
Yeah, it is. It is. And I will tell you, and Tommy can probably confirm as well, even after you've been doing it a whole bunch of years, when you've got something new and you hold it in your hands, it's still a good feeling. It's still exciting, Yeah, Tommy's right. Yes. Yeah. So I mean, it's still exciting to see that new thing that you've worked on, that you've produced, that you've collaborated with others to make happen. It's still exciting to see that. Even after you think, oh well, once it's your 20th one, once it's your 30th or 50th one, it's not that exciting. But that's not true. It's still exciting to see. Particularly, I think when you love the medium, as many comic book people do. There's not a lot of. I don't really know anyone who gets into comics for the money.
Yeah, and that actually goes for the fan side. I don't know a lot of people who buy comics because they're just kind of interested.
Yeah,
which is probably one of the negatives of the entire enterprise too. It's hard to find a casual fan.
Yeah.
But there is something really cool about the fact that when you find guys who love comics, they really love them. They can talk about them for a long time.
Yeah. And I think that's what when we talked about you being a Marvel zombie, and I mean, I was certainly a Marvel zombie, and I think Tommy was a bit of a Marvel zombie early on too. I know he's a Spider-Man fan, so he says yes there. I think that's what happened is that, there was something there that drew us, and it just sucked us into that world, so that we were like, I need more. I need to see more, and I think. I think Silverline is getting, is getting there. We've got, some of the folks hanging out with us tonight. It's exciting to always see. I don't know if he's still here or not, but it's exciting to always see Oven pop up. And it makes my heart happy when I see Oven and say, hey guys, that's just one example. But I think we're fortunate that we can be making and producing things like that. That creates that kind of feeling that me and Tommy had when we saw the Marvel books. It's like, oh, this is what excites me, and for me to think, oh, well, we're doing that same thing for others. That's a good feeling. So where was your? Because I know you have. So when the book came out, what was your? Where was the first time you signed autographs for people?
Oh, I think it was.
And let's not count the Kickstarter, because you did sign a whole bunch of books for the Kickstarter that were mailed out. But I'm talking your parents. Do you remember?
No.
I think I know.
Okay. Was it at Daytona?
Daytona. Yeah, I think it was Daytona, because then you did you do a signing at Little Trouble's Little Sister yet?
No.
Okay.
No, we haven't done that yet. Yeah, it must have been Daytona.
Is Daytona the only place that you appeared so far?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so let's talk about that for a minute then. So you were a guest. You've been to comic conventions before. In fact, I know that you went to Daytona the year before that.
Yeah.
Was it the year before that, or 2 years before that? I think it was last year. Well, no, okay. You were a guest in 2019.
Yes.
And I think you were an attendee in 2018.
Yes, that's
because you came by, and I think Barry Gregory, who is my good friend and the creator and writer of John Amon, The Amazing Man, The Miniature Man, and some other stuff, and Tommy's partner at Kablam. He was right beside me, and you stopped and talked to me then, as well as looked around at a whole bunch of other stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you were there, and then so tell me. We've got a couple comments here. Royal Airship says, "I love watching all these awesome stories and projects come together." Yeah, me too. And seeing that everyone is invested and having fun with them just makes me want to invest more. Yeah, that's exciting. And Oven says they were closed for a minute talking about Trouble's Little Sister. So if Oven, if you're still there, if let me know if they're open back up, and I'll reach out to them and see if we can't get. Are you good to go sign autographs now? Or are you still want to wait? Yeah. Okay. Yeah, and we'll get you back down there, because I know they Trouble's Little Sister supported the Kalis Kickstarter, so they've got copies for you to sign down there. So what was the feeling though? Oven says they are, so I'll reach out to them and we'll try to get some arrangements for you to go down there and sign it. Trouble's Little Sister. A good shop down there. They're very supportive of independent comics, and I know they in talking to them, they want to be more supportive. So that's from someone like us. That's pretty exciting. So tell me though, tell us your very first guest appearance at a convention, because I know that you've been to other conventions. You didn't just go to Daytona as an attendee 2 years ago. I mean, I'm guessing you've been to MegaCon and stuff like that.
I've been to MegaCon a lot.
Yeah.
And
so
Actually, what was it? There was a virtual panel that we did just a few months ago. Do you remember that?
Yeah. I do, but I'm trying to remember it.
Because I did my first signing at Daytona, but I did my first panel on that virtual con, and I wasn't planning this, but I think I dozed off. And, someone on the comments was like, "Wake up!" And I'm like, "Oh man, this sucks."
Yeah.
So I was like, "Oh, that's what I call not making a good first impression."
Yeah, Tommy.
Yeah. And
well,
Daytona was great.
Yeah, for those who don't know, I mean, 10 p.m. This is kind of late for you, right? This is 10. Right, I'm looking at my clock, and it's 10:07 p.m. This is a little bit late for you, right?
It is. It is. I admit, I'm actually in bed by 10 typically. So.
So yeah. So what was the feeling at Daytona when you were there and you actually got to meet people and talk to them in person?
Yeah, it was pretty interesting to be at a convention where you felt a little bit more like you were part of that community that was presenting something instead of just consuming something, which that's kind of why I love going to MegaCon. I love looking in the $5 bins, and I love looking at all the tchotchke, and that's all that. But there was always something, like I saw. I've seen some comic professionals on the floor, and that was always fun. But there's always this feeling like I'm over here, but they're over there. And what's funny is, I'll be honest with you. Doing Daytona made me realize that they probably do not look at themselves as elites, because I was like, I'm just a dude.
Yeah. I
wrote this comic, and hey, I'd love it if you checked it out. But if you didn't, well, that's okay. Let's just live our lives and be happy. And I imagine that a lot of these professionals are the same way. They're like, why am I here? Well, they said they'd give me food vouchers. So, okay.
Yeah.
And that kind of, so in a sense, you do feel like you're part of this community, but it also is kind of a grounding experience too. So,
yeah,
I think I remember probably as a kid thinking, I would love to write for comics because those guys they must have the best lives ever. And then I think I heard once someone say, you don't want to get into comics because they don't pay you that much, but everybody still wants your job. And I mean, no one's going to want to do writing for Kalis because I won't let you. But at the same time, it's very it's cool that I have people who read it and tell me that they love it, and that is a real shot in the arm. I need that kind of encouragement. Writers are very fragile beings, but time it does not make me feel like hey, I'm the coolest guy around now. I'm like, but I write comics. It's really cool, but come on, man. Right. So it helps to have kind of a grounding experience like that.
Well, I also think, I might be projecting here, I don't know, but I also think that that was a good show for Silverline. We had a nice little presence there, and you weren't so much put there alone. And I don't know very many, now that I think about it, I don't know very many creators that kind of start off alone like that, because they're usually with somebody. But you were there with Sid Williams was there, John Medic was there, Tommy was there, even though he was kind of around the corner a little bit. And then we had Alex was also there, as far as creators go. So we had a healthy little contingent. At the show. which makes it fun, when you're there with others.
Well, and I needed that because I do not consider myself anything other than a newbie right now. I think I'm a decent storyteller because, coming up with screenwriting, it's taught me a lot about it. But in terms of not just the convention scene, but the whole comic, it was pretty cool to actually be around people who have done that for a while.
Yeah.
To see that they were actually, pretty grounded people in their own right. And that, I think, helped me to not feel like such a putz. So that was nice.
Yeah. I think my experience very much mirrors yours in that I have found the overwhelming, and not everybody, obviously, there are certainly some tools, but the overwhelming majority of people in the comic book industry are genuinely kind of welcoming. Excuse me. Genuinely, are interested to see you be successful. I don't know too many people that are so cutthroat that they're going to go after you. And that may be because I think a lot of people, there's a lot of room to do your own thing. It may be more cutthroat if you're trying to do Spider-Man or the X-Men or something like that. But when you're doing your own thing, I think there's a lot of room, particularly in independent comics, that people tend to be very, very welcoming.
Yeah.
At least that's been my experience. So, so I have to ask this question before I move on to the next question. Because of your film background, is there any hopes, desires, plans, maybe, to do any kind of film thing for Kalis? Is there? I mean, it's got to be in the back of your mind a little bit, huh?
What's weird is not really.
Really?
For this reason, I think kind of what I was saying earlier was I chose comics because I don't think the other venues fit very well. It might make a decent TV show, but the way I look at Kalis is not necessarily an ongoing story with chapters. There is some of that going on, but really it's more about this guy who's trying to figure out the world around him, and there's forces on his side and there's forces against him, and they all kind of are just characters that are fleshing out this world that he is experiencing. And the problem with doing that as a movie is you just don't have the time.
Right.
The problem with doing it as a TV show is I think they would want a stronger narrative through line. And so if I were to have a guy come up and tell me they wanted to do a Kalis show, I would want to work with their writers. So I might see if I could negotiate some kind of access to the writer's room or something like that. I don't know, run a show or anything like that, but I'd love to sit in and supervise the story in a way that would probably look a little different than it looks in the comics.
Sure, yeah.
But what's weird is I am enjoying the complete separation of the medium from everything.
Okay. Well, that's interesting. I guess I just assumed, and of course, what happens to assume, but I just assumed that there was still always that question is, you come from this film world, and even though Kalis is a comic, it just seems like kind of a natural transition back to film. And I'm not suggesting that you wrote Kalis with that in mind, because I don't think that is the case at all. I think Kalis utilizes all the strengths that are comics, and that's part of what I like about it. But it's just kind of the natural thing. Hey, you're already a film guy, because a lot of comic creators are like, hey, I like my comic, I did this, but wouldn't it be cool if we could make a film out of it? Or excuse me, you know what I'm saying?
I do.
And so there's that just kind of natural aspect of them, and the fact that you already kind of do this thing seems like a natural sort of move back that way.
Well,
sorry, I got a frog in the throat.
Who knows? It may turn that way. But that does remind me of something that I actually have really enjoyed about the comic writing process. Like I watch a fair amount of TV. I watch a fair amount of movies. And the funny thing about both those mediums are there's so much, and I've kind of alluded to this, but not only is there a lot of art, a lot of, what am I trying to say? There are a tremendous amount of resources that go into them to make them really good.
Yeah.
So much so that it's almost hard for someone who is, well, let me put it this way. It's really hard to find a low budget television show that's really worth watching.
Oh, yeah.
And the reason is because there is so much content out there. It blows my mind even thinking about it now. I can't remember the last time that I literally did not have enough hours in the day to watch the TV that I wish I could watch.
Yeah.
Because it's all so top notch, or at least it's very close to top notch.
Yeah.
One of the best things about writing comics is, I'm not going to say that I write as good a comic as I can.
Right.
I don't have the pressure that comes from trying to break into an industry that expects perfection from the get-go.
Yeah.
And that is freeing. I can't, if someone came up to me and offered to make Kalis into a show, I would almost want to say no, because I'd be embarrassed. Not because I don't think Kalis is any good, but because I think these guys are operating in levels of creativity and just an output that I can't fathom right now.
Yeah.
I can fathom what I do, and that's pretty cool. So does that make sense?
Yeah, well, it absolutely makes sense.
Yeah.
Did I ever tell you my my story of when I first got here when I first started teaching at Full Sail, which is now nearly 9 years ago? I was putting together this project with a top 10 Batman artist who is a friend of mine. And he had made, we've been talking for a long time. And I just said, hey, you should be doing more comics. I'd love to do a comic with you. And he said, I tell you what, I'll do a comic with you if you can fulfill 2 conditions. And I'm like, okay, what are they? He said, make sure it's a story that I like, and get somebody to pay my rates. Well, I got a story he liked, and so had that accomplished, but I couldn't find anyone to pay his rates. And I was kind of bemoaning this fact in one of the faculty meetings. Now, keep in mind that a lot of my faculty meetings, the faculty at the time anyway, had all come from film and television and stuff like that. And they asked me and said, well, how much would you need? And I said, well, probably around $30,000. They laughed, and one of them said, that's our catering budget.
Yeah, exactly.
And I went, we just live in totally different worlds where, I'm if I could get that, I could make this really rockin' cool, comic graphic novel with a top-notch, industry artist. And they're like, yeah, we buy our food with that. Like,
yeah.
Cassisi says, hey, Cassisi, what's up? Cassisi's, I don't know how long you've been here, Cassisi. I don't know what you've heard, but Cassisi's got him a finished book that he's rocking along. And I saw him post either yesterday or today or maybe the day before. They all kind of run together. He's already starting on his 2nd issue too. So very, very excited for that. I'm a tiny bit proud because he's a former student. I like to see that. He's very passionate and gung ho. So I am excited for that. So keep rocking, Cassisi. You got cheerleaders here, and me, and by default, I keep looking over there like I'm looking at you, right? Me, and by default, all Silverline is cheering for you. So when you and I first talked, this was a story, and you kind of alluded to it a little bit today. This was a story that Kalis was a story that you're like, I got to tell this. I got a comic. I got to do this kind of thing. You feel so. It's a 2-part question. So after this Kalis series concludes, is there more? Is there more Kalis? Do you have more stories to tell in that world?
Yes, I definitely do. Kalis number 4 ends with a very definitive ending, but also with the feeling, and this is what I'm hoping people get, that we have just stepped into a new world, and there are so many places to go, and I intend to carry it as far as I can. And I keep adjusting down the number of issues in the series because Kickstarter is not the fastest way to turn around a comic.
Yeah.
On the other hand,
remember you and I talked about this a little bit early on. Remember?
Yeah. But I want to.
I've got 24 issues I want to do, and I'm like,
exactly.
Yeah, that might be a little too many, dude.
Well, I was thinking, at that point, I was like, I could be doing this into my 80s. I don't know that much stamina, but the way we're looking at it, you and I have talked about trying a couple of different things to see if we can. And let's just say I am pretty committed right now to making sure the story concludes in a way that ends the story. That's one thing that has bugged me about like licensed properties like Marvel and whatnot, is the stories can't end. And even when Marvel teases that someone's going to die, you're already setting your watch to when they get resurrected.
This is true.
Yeah, but here's my little pitch. I know how Kalis ends, and it's going to end that way. I'm not sure how long it's going to take me to get there, but it will end, and I think it'll be a pretty satisfying ending. So
Tommy says, tell us. Yeah. So who are some? So it's 10:23. So we're getting close to an hour and a half here. But who are some of your? It's a two-part question. Who were some of your early inspirations in comics? And then maybe who are some of the people that comic creators, particularly, that you draw inspiration from today?
Sure. Well, I've already mentioned John Byrne.
Mm-hmm. So John Byrne's kind of a two-parter. I mean, John Byrne does the writing, and he also did well. I guess mostly just X-Men, where he was just the artist there.
I'll be brutally honest with you. First, let me predicate this by saying I love Lewis's work. It's better than I could have expected. But when I buy comics, I'll buy it almost solely on the writing.
Oh yeah,
it's gorgeous art, and I don't like the writer. I'm not interested. And if I think the writing is top notch and the art is second class, I'll probably still buy it.
Okay. And
so John Byrne is an artist. He's great, absolutely. But I thought his stories were so imaginative for fantastic. Some of the best runs.
I agree.
That book.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, and Chris Claremont, of course. There was something about his writing style in the 80s that almost made comics feel like they had gravitas. Like we weren't reading funny books anymore. We were reading serious. This is me at the high school thinking, this is like literature, man. But it was just that good, and it was just really cool. I loved Roger Stern's.
Me too.
Adventures. I thought it was great. Larry Hama, of course, is who got me hooked onto G.I. Joe, and that was a lot of fun. Those are probably my big ones. I'm sure Jim Shooter's run on Secret Wars was pretty wild. I remember having that summer blockbuster feel at the comic book store. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Wars. So that was a lot of fun.
I don't know. Did I tell you? We got to meet Jim Shooter.
I saw that photo.
Yeah.
You kind of towered over the rest of you.
And I tell you, it was very, very cool. I had met him before. In fact, one time I actually went up and asked him for a job at a San Diego Comic-Con. I can't remember which company he had just gone to, but I went up and said, hire me to be one of your editors. And he just laughed at me, and we had a conversation then about who I was and where I worked. But it was, he didn't say you're hired.
Of anyone I know personally, you would be the only one who would actually go through with that. So, kudos to you, Roland.
Well, thank you. The thing about it is, there's people that I know and respect that, say some not real positive things about Jim Shooter. Certainly, you hear he was a tyrant as an editor-in-chief. And I never worked with him, certainly, like that. So I can't speak to that at all. That's just one of those things I hear and I go, but really, was he really like that? Because for me, the Shooter era there at Marvel is just phenomenal. And you look at all of the things he put into place, and they're really good things. They're good things to have in a comic. I don't know that I've ever heard anyone say that his policies or whatever were bad, just that he was more like a tyrant. But and the people who say it are people I know and respect, So it's kind of disappointing to hear that. But when I got to speak with him one-on-one, again, it wasn't an employee or a business relationship. He was a super guy, So yeah. So what about hold on then. Oven said, I was bummed I missed out on the Leesburg event. I hope you guys can do something a little closer next time. This coming weekend, Oven, we were supposed to be going down to Kissimmee. There at Louis' show. I can't remember the name of it now. Anyway, we're supposed to be doing that one this weekend. Unfortunately, Oven, it was canceled. Louis did tell me he's invited me back next year, but I don't have dates on that one. And I was going to miss out on Pikeville, which got canceled this year because they had initially set their date like 2 weeks before the Kissimmee show. And so I was going to go to Pikeville, and then 2 weeks later I was going to go to Kissimmee. Well, Pikeville, Infinity Toy and Toy, yes. Thank you, Oven. That's what it was. What it is. I love the show. I just couldn't think of the name right off the top of my head. I love Louis, the guy who runs the show. But what happened, Pikeville had to change the date, and they changed the date to the same weekend as the Infinity Toy and Comic Con. And so I was incredibly bummed about that. I'd committed to Infinity Toy and Comic Con, and so I was going to go there. But I was incredibly bummed that I was going to have to miss the Pikeville show. So back to the question for you then. So that's someone who inspired you then. Who are some of the your favorite writers and inspirations today?
Well, let me see. I really enjoy a lot of what Jonathan Hickman.
Okay, yeah.
Robert Kirkman and Jonathan Hickman.
Yeah,
I always get those guys mixed up. I enjoy both of those guys. What's funny is they're nothing alike stylistically.
What's funny is you said Robert Hickman, and I thought The Walking Dead, and I'm like, why did I think The Walking Dead?
Yeah, exactly. They're both very readable and very imaginative. I think they are at the top of their game right now. I love what Jonathan Hickman is doing with the X-Men. It's really pretty wild, and it's really good. I will read anything Brian K. Vaughan comes out with.
Yeah,
I think that guy, his imagination could power Indonesia, basically. And
that's a lot of power required down there too.
It does, yeah. And Neil Gaiman's work is it's timeless. And I got to the Sandman party late, and it's great to be excited about reading comics that came out 20 years ago.
Oh, yeah.
So that's just a great feeling. Actually, Joe Hill's run on Lock and Key is, I thought, some of the best comic writing of the last 20 years. And he's really kind of stepping up his game right now, and I'm really enjoying what he's coming out with. Scott Snyder is great.
Okay. Did you see where he's got a Kickstarter running?
Yeah, I just saw that today.
Yeah, he's got a creator-owned project he's doing. I'm glad to see that.
Yeah, exactly. And Ed Brubaker's crime stuff is pretty darn amazing, and I enjoy that a lot. So, yeah,
cool.
Those guys, I will say Jason Aaron, I think he does some great work. I can't remember how it happened, but moving to just the independent comic idea that you could tell a story that was perfectly at home in comics. There might be a movie based on, or a mini or Netflix series based on your property, but for all intents and purposes, the story you're telling is firmly at home in comics.
Yeah.
Those guys I just listed have basically owned that concept. I just think they're doing some great work. None of it's, licensed. You're never going to see, I take it back. I think I saw some pop figures for Saga characters, which I thought was kind of hilarious.
Yeah.
But those guys aren't out to sell T-shirts. They're just out to tell great, really imaginative stories. And it kind of makes me proud to be associated with the industry.
Yeah.
We are not talking comics for kids anymore. We're talking serious, imaginative storytelling of the highest caliber. So great.
Yeah. I agree with that. Oh shoot, I had a question at the tip of my tongue. Anybody, any of you guys out there have any questions before we call it a night? I had something on the tip of my tongue. I was going to say, Brent, but I've forgotten what it is. So my question is, because of what you said, it made me think of this. I get frustrated when I read a comic and I feel like I have just read a pitch for a television show. I want to read a comic that is a comic. And I think that a lot of this decompressed storytelling now, you get a comic and there's, you flip through the pages and there's like 2 words on every page and you're like, this is not a TV show. You get to the end and you're like, you spend, a minute and a half with a book. I get very frustrated when I see something that I feel is a pitch for a TV show or film, whatever. Is that kind of what you're saying as well? Maybe in slightly different words. Yeah,
I know what you're talking about. I get frustrated when I buy a comic and it takes me just like 5 minutes to read it, and I feel like I'm mentally trying to draw it out so that I can say I got my money's worth. Like, I don't need that. I want words in my comic, but not just because I want to take a long time to read it. It's because movies, film has a specific way of doing things. They are about the visual. They are about saying show, don't tell. Now, I've had people say I should write my comic scripts that way, and I've disagreed.
Yeah.
Because film is it's not only a different medium, it's a different industry.
Yeah.
So you're trying to compare 2 things that ought not to be compared. I'll notice, like Robert Kirkman's a good example. He can get kind of wordy in his dialogue. The thing is, I don't care because I'm reading a comic book. It doesn't feel labored. If he pushed it any harder, it might start to feel that way. Jonathan Hickman, he can get pretty wordy, and his concepts are so highbrow that in a film you wouldn't know what you were watching. You would need to have those words to explain what you're seeing. And so I don't know if it worked very well in a movie, but in comics it works fantastically. Yeah. And like Joe Hill's Lock and Key. I
Mm.
saw it. It did get turned into a miniseries.
Yes, it did.
And you know what? It was watchable. I'm curious for a second series. But the funny thing is, and I heard this from a lot of my friends, they're like, I was so frustrated at the show, not because the show was bad, but because it wasn't as good as the comic, because the comic was so good.
Yeah.
And that's, everybody's going to say, okay, well, if you transfer one medium over to another, you're going to lose something. Okay,
Yeah.
that's true. But that something you're transferring it to should inform, based on the rules of that medium, it should take it and make it its own thing, and it should be great. That's
right. Yeah.
And Lock and Key was great.
Yeah.
And it was great because it was a comic book, not because it was a pitch for a TV show that was masquerading as a comic, but because it full on was a comic in every way that counts. So,
it's funny because most of my students come in with an interest in film and television and not necessarily comics. And so often they'll read a comic or two, and then they'll come in with the idea, well, show, don't tell, show, don't tell. And that's their intent. But what happens is, I make them read a bunch of stuff. What happens is they learn as they read comics that embrace their ideas of show, don't tell. They're like, I had no idea what was going on in this comic book. I didn't know where I was. I didn't know who these characters were. And I'm like, this is what I'm trying to tell you. You can't follow the same rules that you do in film as you do in comics, because they're different things. And some of them embrace it, some of them do it just because I require it. But they often will see that when they try to embrace the storytelling techniques for film and comics, there's often a lot of confusion on the part of the reader. Stephen Brown says, while I was trying to get into the comic book industry, various artists said he needed to be able to tell a story with his art, so he had to learn how to write a story. What do you think about that? I have an opinion. What do you think about that?
I want to hear what you say first.
I'm not sure I agree with that. I think that there's... I think you have to be able to tell a story visually, but that doesn't mean you have to know how to write a story. When you tell a story visually, I think what you have to do is you have to be able to communicate ideas from a scene. Sometimes those ideas are simply, let me show you visually that this character is hurting in this scene, and how can I show you that visually? If you're an artist, you've got to do it visually. How can I show you that visually in the best way possible, right? Comics, obviously, you have to think about how you move them from panel to panel. I think that one of the biggest things you have to know in comics is how to move your camera in such a way that you don't confuse the reader and their eye. A lot of times, rookie artists don't want to draw backgrounds. And backgrounds are the thing that establish for somebody's phone. Backgrounds are the things that establish for the reader where they are, not just in setting situation, which it is, but also spatially for the characters as they move around. And so you have to be able to know where to, quote unquote, put the camera for a comic book in order to tell the story that way. So I'm not convinced that you have to know how to write a story, but I am convinced that you need to know how to tell a story visually, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I would agree. And I would agree based on my own very limited experience, which is to say, Lewis is really good at, and I've told him to tell me if I'm not ever doing this too much, but I over-explain my panel descriptions because I know exactly what I want to see.
Sure.
Occasionally he deviates from it just a little, and a lot of times it's to good effect.
Right.
But I don't know if it's something that's that I intuit, or is it my years of screenwriting? I really don't know. But I can see the film in my head,
Right.
and if I can break it up into 5 different things, those things become panels. And if they explain, how, not just how he gets across the room, but how he feels. Is there action in there, or is it just walking? If it's just walking, I'd rather do something else. That's kind of.
And you don't need 4 panels to see that, though.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. Yeah. I wonder how you would do with. I do want to clarify, Stephen, if you're still listening. I'm not trying to suggest that I disagree with that this happened to you. What I'm trying to say is that the artist who told you that you had to write a story. I'm not sure that I agree with that idea. I wonder how you would. I wonder how you would gel with writing the Marvel style script. Where you go in and write the plot without writing the dialogue and text, or if that would be a struggle with you, because that's very different from writing a film script and even writing the scripts that you've been writing for Kalis.
And I will say, it might really also depend on the artist, because there are a few writer-artist teams who kind of share the creator credit.
Sure.
Which I've always assumed meant that the artist wasn't just doing what the writer told him or her to do, but they were actually collaborating in a way as to how the story unfolded. I don't know if that's true or not, but I imagine it's true sometimes.
Well, yeah. Usually, from my experience, usually what happens when you have a writer artist that collaborate, they just get on the phone and they talk about it. Hey, what do you want to do? What we do this with the story.
Yeah.
We'll have the character do this, and we'll have them do that, and this is the kind of thing that they'll do. And so they talk about it, and then the writer takes that conversation and then writes the script based on the conversation that he and the artist had. So they get collaborative credit for that. It's usually the writer who sits down and kind of makes does all the typing, makes those kind of decisions, but they collaborate on the story, where then the writer will actually write the script. So it is an interesting process to do like that. Well, Brent, anything you want to add? Is there anything that I did not ask you that you're like, Roland didn't ask me this? Why didn't he ask me this? That you would like to add?
No, I don't think so. I think we, can't think of anything. I hope people are enjoying Kalis. If they want to let us know if they are enjoying it, or if there's anything they want to see, hey, I wouldn't mind hearing from you. So
yeah. The responses that I've gotten have been good about Kalis. We live in a weird age where there's not a whole lot of letter writing and that kind of thing anymore. Which I kind of miss. I kind of miss that aspect. But yeah, the responses that I've heard have been all been very positive. 99% positive about Kalis, which I think is good. Tommy, get ready to jump back on. I know you can hear me. Get ready to jump back on audibly. Kasisi says, thanks, guys. Royal Airship says, lay less. I'm not sure what he means by that. Lay less. Yeah. Oh, he says Kalis has been my favorite so far. There you go.
Oh.
So
hey, man. Thanks. Keep reading.
Yeah, keep reading. That's right. Autocorrect. That was a good looking page, Tommy. You're muted.
I had a question. Thank you.
I had a question I was going to ask you about it. You shut it off already. He had lines. He had those. Maybe you don't have. Maybe you can answer without. He had those little lines on his face that looked like springs or something attached to his head, and you were just inking through those.
Yeah, there's a lot of spots where the some of the contouring of the face and the feathering and all the stuff went through them, and I'll come back and white it out and then go back and put them in.
That's what I was going to ask. I was going to say, how are you going to do?
Make sense?
Yeah, yeah, it does make sense. But I was wondering how you're gonna, make that. So you'll just do that. And then one of us has a little delay.
I'll do it on another layer, and then
Who does?
I think Tommy does. He has some kind of little delay.
The voice.
Your voice doesn't match up with your picture. Yeah.
When he talks, blah blah sounds come out.
I can hear you just fine, and I can see you just fine, but your voice and your picture are not synced up. Try it now. 2, 3.
1, 2, 3.
Nope.
Am I behind?
On my side.
What you say is fine on your side, Brent?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh wow. Let me try this. Let me try.
That's one way to do it.
Yeah.
Oh.
Oh wow, no, it's back to unsync. It's weird. I see you and I hear you. You're just unsync.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add those on another layer, and then I'll wipe. I'll erase the underlying part where it went over, where I inked over those lines, so I can get a cleaner, smoother stroke. And so that way I'll come back and I'll fix it.
Okay, sounds good. Yeah, it was just a question that as we were watching you, it was like, wonder what he's going to do with that. So, and Kasisi said he saw the delay too, but then it got better.
I want to make the other comments, man. I'll put them in. I just wanted to get some of the times it was it needed to be inked a little smoother straight through rather than stop and then start, as the line went.
Gotcha.
Okay. Cool beans.
All right. Well, we're going to call it a night here, folks. And remember that we have our Wednesday Wham Wednesday night, 9 p.m., where you'll get to see both Brent and Tommy as part of the Wednesday Wham crew. And our
what is our subject for this week?
Well, I'm looking at my list here. It is things you don't want to see your protagonist do. So, or you can say your hero, your protagonist. It's your hero. Things you don't want to see your hero do. So, and then next week next Sunday we'll be talking to the Sunday crew. We'll be talking about the same thing, and then next, I don't know who's the one-on-one next week. I'd have to pull out my my schedule, and I don't have that handy. But other than that, thank you all. Kasisi said thanks all, and have a good night. Thank you, Kasisi. Thank you, Royal, Stephen, Oven, all the others who left comments. Tommy, thank you for thank you for inking while we were chatting. And Brent, thank you so much for sharing your life story with us.
My pleasure.
All right. And until next time, remember to
make mine
Silverline.
You guys be safe out there.
Good night, everyone.
Bye.